The alarm woke Taewon from a dreamless sleep. He rolled out of his bunk with a groan, rubbing his eyes as he stumbled toward the control panel. The screen showed a blinking red dot about 3 kilometers from his salvage station. A distress beacon. He stared at it for a long moment, considering whether to ignore it. In his 5 years operating this remote salvage station, he had learned that most distress beacons meant trouble. Pirates used fake signals to lure in good-hearted fools. Corporate ships sent automated beacons when they wanted free rescue services. Either way, it usually ended badly for someone like him, but something about this signal felt different. It was weak, fading in and out like a dying heartbeat. Whoever sent it was in real trouble. Taewon cursed under his breath and pulled on his worn jacket. He was going to regret this. He always did. The trip to the beacon took 40 minutes in his small repair shuttle. The vessel was old, patched together from a dozen different ships, but it ran well enough. As he approached the coordinates, his scanners picked up a small object drifting through the asteroid field. It looked like an escape pod, but not any design he recognized. The pod was beautiful in a way that human technology never managed to be. Its surface was smooth and dark, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and glow faintly. But beauty did not matter when the life support readings showed critical failure. Whoever was inside had maybe an hour of air left. Taewon maneuvered his shuttle closer and extended the docking clamp. The pod was designed for automated retrieval, but those systems were dead. He would have to do this the hard way. He suited up and went outside, magnetic boots keeping him anchored to his shuttle's hull. The void of space stretched endlessly around him, cold and indifferent. He had always found it peaceful out here. No people, no noise, no expectations. Just him and the stars. The escape pod's hatch was sealed tight. He tried the emergency release, but nothing happened. The entire system was offline. Taewon pulled out his plasma cutter and began working on the seals. It was delicate work. Cut too deep and he might breach the hull. Not deep enough and he would waste precious minutes. Sparks flew silently in the vacuum as he worked. His hands were steady despite the pressure. Years of salvage work had taught him patience. Rush a job and someone died, usually him. 20 minutes later, the hatch finally gave way. Taewon pulled it open and peered inside. Emergency lights cast a red glow over the pod's interior. And there, strapped into the seat, was someone who was definitely not human. She was tall, taller than any human woman, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Her features were elegant and angular, her hair a deep shade of violet that flowed past her shoulders. She wore some kind of formal suit that was torn and stained with purple blood. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. Taewon checked the life support panel. It was worse than he thought. The oxygen system was completely shot and the backup power was down to 3%. She had maybe 20 minutes left. He worked fast. First, he connected his portable air supply to her helmet, giving her fresh oxygen. Then he began bypassing the damaged systems, rerouting power from non-essential functions. It was crude work, the kind that would make any proper engineer cringe, but it kept her alive. As he worked, the pod's security system suddenly activated. Red warning lights flooded the space, and a mechanical voice spoke in a language he did not understand. Then something shot out from the wall toward him. Taewon barely dodged the first blade. It sliced through the air where his head had been a second before. Automated defenses, of course. The pod thought he was an attacker. He scrambled backward as more blades extended from hidden panels. His mind raced through options. He could retreat to his shuttle, but then she would die. He could try to disable the system, but he did not understand the technology. Or he could do something incredibly stupid. Taewon grabbed his welding torch and dove forward. He jammed the torch directly into the defense system's main panel and fired it at full power. Sparks exploded everywhere. The blades stopped moving. The lights flickered and died. He had just fried the entire security grid. Probably several other systems too. But the immediate threat was gone. The woman stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first. They were gold, bright and striking against her blue skin. She looked at him with confusion, then alarm. Her hand moved toward something at her belt, but she was too weak to reach it. Taewon raised his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. He pointed to himself, then to his shuttle, then back to her. "Come with me. Safe." She stared at him for a long moment. He could see her mind working, assessing the situation. Finally, she gave a small nod. Getting her back to his shuttle was difficult. She was weak from oxygen deprivation and her injuries, and the lack of gravity made movement awkward. Taewon supported most of her weight as they crossed the gap between the pod and his ship. Once inside, he got her strapped into the passenger seat and started the flight back to his station. She watched him the entire time, those gold eyes studying his every move. He tried to look competent and trustworthy. Mostly, he just focused on flying. Back at the station, he carried her to his medical bay. It was a small room with basic equipment, nothing fancy. He set her down on the examination table and began checking her injuries. The cut on her side was deep but had mostly stopped bleeding. He cleaned it and applied a medical patch. It was human technology, but biology was biology. It should work. She spoke suddenly, her voice weak but clear. The words were in that same language from the pod, musical and strange. She seemed to be asking a question. Taewon shook his head. I do not understand. Do you speak English? Any Earth languages? She frowned, concentrating. Then, in heavily accented but understandable English, she said, You are human. It was not a question. It was a statement and not a particularly pleased one. Yes, Taewon said simply. She looked around the medical bay, taking in the patched equipment and worn surfaces. Her expression suggested she had found herself in a particularly unfortunate situation. I am Princess Hayrin of the Valorian Empire, she said, each word careful and formal. You have rendered aid to a member of the imperial family. You will be rewarded. Taewon finished bandaging her wound. I do not want a reward. Rest now. You are safe. Her eyes widened slightly as if he had said something shocking, but exhaustion was taking over. Her eyes closed, and within moments she was asleep. Taewon stood there for a moment, looking at the sleeping alien princess in his medical bay. He had definitely made a mistake. This was going to complicate his simple, quiet life in ways he could not even begin to imagine. He sighed and went to make coffee. It was going to be a long day. Princess Hayrin woke to the smell of something burning. She sat up quickly, wincing as pain shot through her side. For a moment, she did not remember where she was. Then the memories came flooding back. The ambush, the escape pod, the human who had saved her. She looked around the small room. It was cramped and cluttered, filled with tools and spare parts. Everything looked old and well used. This was nothing like the elegant medical facilities of her empire. This was barely better than a storage closet. The burning smell was getting stronger. She stood carefully, testing her balance, and followed the smell to what appeared to be a kitchen area. The human, Taewon, stood in front of a cooking surface, poking at something in a pan that was producing alarming amounts of smoke. He looked up as she entered. You are awake? Good, sit down. Food will be ready soon. Hayrin looked at the smoking pan with doubt. What is that? Eggs, probably. The protein packets are not clearly labeled. It is burning, I know. I like them that way. He scooped the blackened mass onto 2 plates and handed one to her. She stared at it. In the palace, meals were prepared by master chefs and served on plates made from crystal that sang when touched. This was a scorched protein block on a metal plate that had a visible dent in it. I cannot eat this, she said. Taewon shrugged and sat down at the small table. Then do not eat. But that is breakfast. Next meal is in 6 hours. He began eating without ceremony. Hayrin's stomach growled. She sat down reluctantly and took a small bite. It tasted exactly as bad as it looked. She forced herself to swallow. Why did you save me? She asked. Taewon looked up from his plate. You needed help. That is not a reason. Humans are known to be calculating. What do you want in exchange? Nothing. Everyone wants something. He was quiet for a moment, chewing his terrible eggs. I used to think that too. Then I learned that sometimes the cost of wanting things is too high. Hayrin did not understand what he meant, but something in his voice suggested a deep pain. She decided not to press further. After breakfast, Taewon showed her to a small sleeping quarters. You can stay here until your people come for you. How long will that take? I do not know. Your pod's communication system was damaged. I sent out a distress signal using my equipment, but we are very far from any major routes. Could be a few days. Could be a few weeks. Weeks? Hayrin felt her composure crack slightly. I cannot stay here for weeks. You have somewhere better to be? She did not have an answer for that. The days began to blend together. The station was small and there was little to do. Hayrin spent most of the first 2 days in her room waiting for rescue. But boredom eventually drove her out. She found Taewon in the station's workshop, lying under some kind of machinery. Only his legs were visible. Sparks flew from whatever he was doing and she could hear him muttering to himself. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Fixing the water recycler." His voice came from under the machine. "It has been making a strange noise for a week. Should I help?" There was a pause. "Then, do you know how water recyclers work?" "No." "Then no." Hayrin felt her face flush. In the palace, no one spoke to her so dismissively. She was royalty. She commanded fleets. She was treated with respect and deference by everyone she met. This human treated her like she was nobody. It made her angry. It also made her curious. She watched him work for a while. His movements were efficient and practiced. He did not have fancy tools or advanced technology. Everything he used looked old and simple. But he used them with skill. "How did you learn to do this?" she asked, trial and error. "Mostly error." He slid out from under the machine, his face smudged with grease. "Hand me that wrench." She looked at the various tools laid out on the floor. She had no idea what a wrench was. Taewon sighed and pointed, the metal thing with the open end. She picked it up and handed it to him. He took it without thanks and slid back under the machine. "You have servants in your empire, yes?" he asked. "Of course. Must be nice. Never having to fix anything yourself. Never having to figure out how things work. It is efficient. We focus on important matters while others handle basic tasks. And what happens when there is no one else? When you are alone and something breaks?" Hayrin had no answer. She had never been truly alone before. There were always guards, advisors, servants. "Someone to handle problems, you die," Taewon said simply. "You die because you never learned how to save yourself." The words stung because they were true. Without him, she would have died in that pod. Over the following days, something changed. Hayrin began asking questions. How did the life support system work? What kept the station running? Why did he check the seals every morning? Taewon answered her questions with surprising patience. He showed her how to read the diagnostic panels, how to spot potential problems, how to fix simple issues. She was a quick learner. Her mind, trained in strategy and politics, adapted easily to mechanical systems. Soon she was helping him with basic maintenance tasks. One evening, about a week after her arrival, an alarm sounded. Taewon ran to the control room and Hayrin followed. One of the atmospheric processors was failing. "How bad is it?" she asked. "Bad. If it dies completely, we lose 40% of our oxygen production." He was already pulling on his tool belt. "I need to replace the core unit. I will help." He looked at her with surprise. "It is dangerous. The chamber will be depressurized. Then teach me what to do." Something shifted in his expression. A small smile crossed his face. The first real smile she had seen from him. "Okay, put on a suit." They worked together for 3 hours. The job was difficult and required them to coordinate their movements precisely. Hayrin followed Taewon's instructions carefully, handing him tools, holding components in place while he secured them. Her hands grew tired. Her injured side ached, but she did not complain. She had never worked with her hands like this before. It was strange and difficult and somehow satisfying. When they finally got the processor running again, they were both exhausted. They sat on the floor of the control room, neither speaking, just breathing. "You did well," Taewon said finally. "Thank you." She paused. "I am beginning to understand why you live this way. There is something honest about it." "Honest? In my world, everything is layers upon layers. Politics, formality, tradition. Everyone wants something and hides what they truly mean. But machinery does not lie. It works or it does not. You fix it or you do not." Taewon nodded slowly. "That is why I left Earth. Too many people, too many complications. Out here things are simple. Lonely, though." He looked at her, his dark eyes unreadable. Yes, lonely. That night, over another meal of badly cooked food, they talked. Really talked. Hayrin told him about the pressure of being perfect, of always having to represent the Empire, of never being allowed to fail or show weakness. She told him about the assassination attempt, how her own cousin had hired the assassins because he wanted her claim to the throne. Taewon listened without judgment. Then he told her about his family, a wife and daughter, killed in a colony accident when a transport ship's life support failed. He had been an engineer on Earth then, working long hours, always busy. He was not there when they died. After the funeral, he could not stay on Earth anymore. Too many memories. Too much guilt. "It was not your fault," Hayrin said softly. "I know, but knowing something and feeling it are different things." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside the small window, stars stretched endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there was her empire, her responsibilities, her old life. But here, in this moment, sitting across from this strange human who had saved her life, she felt more real than she had in years. "When my people come," she said, "I will make sure you are properly rewarded." Taewon shook his head. "I told you, I do not want anything." "Why not? You have so little here." "I have what I need, peace, quiet, no complications. Is that enough?" He looked at her for a long moment. "It used to be." The attack came without warning on the 12th day. Taewon was in the workshop teaching Haerin how to replace a power coupling when every alarm in the station started screaming at once. He dropped his tools and ran to the control room. Haerin followed close behind. The screen showed a ship approaching fast. It was small, built for speed and stealth with weapon systems that were very much active. "Who is that?" Taewon asked, already moving toward the station's limited defense controls. Haerin's face went pale. "The same design as the ships that attacked me. They found me." "How is that possible?" "Your pod's beacon was dead. They must have tracked the trajectory from the attack site, if they searched every possible drift path." She did not finish. They both knew what it meant. The assassins had been hunting for her systematically, checking every location where her pod might have ended up. The comm system crackled to life. A voice spoke in that same musical language Haerin used. She translated, her voice shaking slightly. "They are demanding I come out alone. If I do, they will not harm you. If I do not, they will destroy the station." "That is not happening," Taewon said flatly. He was pulling up the station's defense grid. It was minimal, designed to deflect small asteroids, not military-grade weapons. "Taewon, there are 4 of them. They are trained warriors with advanced technology. You cannot—" "I did not save your life just to hand you over to killers." He turned to face her. "Do you trust me?" She looked into his eyes and saw the same calm determination he had shown when repairing her pod, when fixing the processor, when doing everything he did. He was not a warrior. He was a mechanic. But he did not know how to quit. "Yes," she said. "I trust you." "Good. Then do exactly what I tell you." The enemy ship docked at the main airlock. Taewon had considered destroying the airlock to prevent their entry, but that would breach the station's hull. Instead, he had a different plan. He sent Haerin to the environmental control room with instructions to watch the monitors and follow his signals. Then he positioned himself in the corridor outside the airlock with nothing but a welding torch and a wrench. The airlock opened. 4 figures stepped through wearing sleek armor that shimmered with energy shields. They carried weapons that hummed with barely contained power. They moved with the fluid grace of trained killers. Taewon stood there in his old jacket and work boots, holding tools. The lead assassin laughed, the sound distorted by his helmet. He said something in his language, probably something about how this would be easy. Taewon pressed a button on the small remote in his pocket. Every light in the corridor went out. At the same moment, all the air vents opened fully, creating a howling wind that filled the space with debris, dust, and blinding vapor from the fire suppression system. The assassins were trained for combat in every environment, but they were used to fighting with their advanced sensors and targeting systems. Taewon had just turned the corridor into a whiteout where their technology was useless. He knew this station by feel. He had walked these corridors in the dark 1,000 times. He moved now with speed and precision, staying low, using the walls for guidance. The first assassin never saw him coming. Taewon swung the heavy wrench with all his strength into where he calculated the knee joint would be. The armor was strong but had to flex at the joints. The assassin went down with a cry of pain. Taewon grabbed the fallen weapon and rolled away as energy blasts tore through the space where he had been. He did not know how to fire the alien gun properly, so he threw it as hard as he could at the nearest figure. It struck with a satisfying impact. 2 down, 2 to go. But now they were adapting, switching to different sensor modes, starting to see through his improvised smokescreen. He needed a new advantage. Taewon ran. He sprinted down the corridor toward the cargo bay, the assassins pursuing. He could hear them behind him, their heavy footsteps, their weapons charging. He burst into the cargo bay and dove behind a stack of supply containers just as energy blasts carved burning lines through the air. The shots missed him by centimeters. The cargo bay was where he stored mining equipment, including explosives. He had rigged charges throughout the bay while waiting for the assassins to board. Nothing fancy, just mining charges connected to a simple detonator. The kind of thing he used to break up asteroids. The assassins entered the bay cautiously, spreading out to flank his position. They were smart, professional. They knew he was trapped. Taewon waited until they were in the right positions. Then he triggered the charges. The explosions were not meant to kill them. The charges were placed to bring down support beams and stacked cargo. Tons of metal and equipment collapsed in a carefully planned pattern, creating a deadly maze of falling debris. 2 assassins were caught directly in the collapse. Their shields flared and failed under the sheer weight. They went down and did not get up. That left the leader, the one who had laughed at him. Taewon came out from behind cover as the dust settled. The assassin was pinned under a fallen beam, his armor cracked, his weapon out of reach. But he was still conscious, still dangerous. They stared at each other across the destroyed cargo bay. Then the assassin reached for a knife at his belt with his free hand. Taewon was faster. He kicked the knife away and pressed his welding torch against the cracked armor. "Do not move." The assassin said something, probably a threat or a curse. "I do not understand you," Taewon said. "And I do not care. Your friends are dead or dying. Your mission failed. Give up." The assassin tried to grab him. Taewon triggered the welding torch. The assassin screamed as heat flooded through the armor cracks. He finally went limp, unconscious from pain and shock. Taewon stood up slowly. His entire body hurt. He had bruises and burns he did not remember getting. His hands were shaking from adrenaline. "Taewon!" Haerin's voice came through the comm system. "Are you alive? Answer me." He pressed the transmit button. "I am alive. It is over." She found him sitting on a piece of broken cargo, breathing hard. She ran to him, checking him for injuries. "You are hurt. You are burned. Why did you do something so stupid and reckless, and it worked, did it not?" She stopped, staring at him. Then, to his surprise, she started laughing. It was not a polite, royal laugh. It was genuine and filled with relief and something else he could not name. "Yes," she said, "it worked. You defeated 4 trained assassins with mining equipment and a welding torch. And a good knowledge of structural engineering and complete insanity. That helped too." She helped him to his feet. He leaned on her more than he wanted to admit. Together they made their way to the medical bay. As she cleaned his wounds, she spoke quietly. "In my empire, warriors train their entire lives for combat. They have the best weapons, the best armor, the best technology. Those assassins were elite killers. I know. You defeated them with tools and tricks and determination. I had good motivation." She paused in her work, looking at him. "Why? Why risk your life like this? You said you wanted a simple, quiet life. You could have let me go. You could have saved yourself." Taewon met her eyes. "After my family died, I told myself I would never care about anyone again. Caring hurt too much. Losing people hurt too much. I came out here to be alone, to be safe from that pain. And then you showed up in your broken pod, bleeding and unconscious. And I realized something. Being safe from pain also means being safe from everything else. From connection, from purpose, from living." He paused. "You asked me before if peace and quiet were enough. I said they used to be. I think what I meant was that they were all I allowed myself to have." Haerin's hands were gentle as she bandaged his burns. "And now? Now I think maybe I am tired of just surviving. Maybe it is time to try living again." She finished the last bandage and sat back. Her gold eyes were bright with emotion. "You are an extraordinary human, Taewon. I am just a mechanic who knows how to fix things." "No," she said softly. "You are much more than that." Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance. Inside the small, damaged station, 2 people from different worlds sat together in comfortable silence, both realizing that something between them had changed. Something neither of them had planned or expected, something that would make everything more complicated, and neither of them minded at all. The Valorian fleet arrived 10 days after the attack. Taewon was in the workshop when his sensors started screaming warnings about multiple large ships entering the sector. He looked at the display and felt his stomach drop. There were 12 ships. Massive warships that made his small salvage station look like a toy. They moved with perfect precision, taking up defensive positions around the station. Each ship was a work of art, all flowing curves and elegant design. They practically glowed with power. "They are here," Hayrin said from behind him. She had come running when the alarm sounded. Her voice held relief and something else. Sadness, maybe. "That is a lot of ships," Taewon said. "I am the Crown Princess. They would send the entire fleet if necessary." A communication request came through. Hayrin answered it, speaking in her language. Taewon watched her posture change, becoming more formal, more rigid. The relaxed woman who had been learning to fix water recyclers was disappearing, replaced by the royal princess. After a brief conversation, she turned to him. "They are sending a shuttle. Admiral Dongha, my uncle, wishes to meet you. Should I be worried?" She smiled slightly. "He will be polite. Probably." The shuttle that docked at his station was bigger than his entire living quarters. When the airlock opened, a dozen Valorian soldiers emerged first, their armor pristine and gleaming. They swept through the station with practiced efficiency, checking every corner. Then Admiral Dongha stepped through. He was tall and imposing, with the same blue skin as Hayrin, but darker, more weathered. His hair was silver, pulled back in a complex style. His uniform was covered in medals and decorations that probably meant important things. His gold eyes assessed everything with sharp intelligence. He saw Hayrin and his stern expression softened slightly. They spoke quickly in their language. He touched her shoulder, checking that she was truly unharmed. Then his eyes moved to Taewon. "You are the human," he said in perfect English. His accent was barely noticeable. "I am Taewon, Admiral Dongha, commander of the 2nd Imperial Fleet." He looked around the station, taking in the worn equipment, the patched walls, the general state of barely controlled chaos. "My niece has been living here. She has been safe here." Safe. The Admiral walked to a panel that Taewon had fixed with duct tape and wire. He touched it with one finger, his expression suggesting he had found something both fascinating and horrifying. "This is your idea of safe? It works. I can see the improvised repairs throughout this station, the ancient technology, the lack of proper safety systems." He turned back to Taewon. "And yet my niece tells me you saved her life multiple times, that you defeated 4 trained assassins, that you kept her alive in conditions that should not be survivable. I did what needed to be done." Dongha studied him for a long moment. "You are either very brave or very foolish. I have not decided which. Can I be both?" A slight smile crossed the Admiral's face. "Perhaps." He gestured to one of his officers who stepped forward with a small case. "The Valorian Empire does not forget debts. You saved the Crown Princess. You will be compensated appropriately." The officer opened the case. Inside was a credit chip that glowed softly. Taewon did not know exactly how much it was worth, but from the way the officer handled it with reverence, it was probably enough to buy a small planet. "That is very generous," Taewon said carefully, "but I cannot accept it." The entire room went silent. Every Valorian present stared at him like he had just announced he could breathe vacuum. "You refuse?" Dongha's voice was dangerously quiet. "I helped because it was the right thing to do. Not for payment, that is not how this works. You saved royalty. You must be rewarded. It is law. I do not care about your laws." Taewon kept his voice respectful but firm. "I do not want money or titles or recognition. I just want to go back to my quiet life." "That is not possible. You are now involved in imperial matters whether you wish it or not. These assassins, you killed them, yes, but they were part of a larger conspiracy. There will be investigations, questions, your testimony will be required. Then I will give my testimony, but I will not accept payment for doing what any decent person would do." Hayrin had been watching this exchange with growing tension. Now she stepped forward. "Uncle, may I speak with Taewon alone for a moment?" Dongha looked like he wanted to refuse, but he nodded. 5 minutes. Then we must return to the fleet. There are security concerns." The Valorians withdrew to the airlock area, leaving Taewon and Hayrin in the workshop. "You are making this very difficult," she said. "I am just being honest. Do you understand what you are refusing?" That amount of money would change your life. You could have a new ship, a proper station, anything you wanted. I know. Then why? Taewon looked at her, this alien princess who had spent nearly 3 weeks in his cramped station, learning to fix things with her hands, eating terrible food, becoming someone real instead of just royalty. Because if I take their money, that is all this was, a transaction. You pay me, we are even, I go back to being alone. But it was more than that. At least for me. Her eyes widened slightly. Taewon, you do not have to say anything. I know you have responsibilities. An empire to think about. I am just a human mechanic. I understand how this works. You understand nothing, she said, but her voice was soft, not angry. These past weeks with you have been the most real, the most honest time of my life. You treated me like a person, not a title. You taught me things, trusted me to help you, risked everything to protect me. Do you think I want to just leave and never see you again? What choice do we have? You are a princess. I am nobody. You are not nobody. Not to me. They stood there close enough to touch, neither moving. Outside the workshop, Admiral Dong Ha was probably getting impatient. The fleet was waiting. The Empire needed its princess back. I do not know what to do, Heron said quietly. Imperial law requires you to be rewarded. If you refuse a material reward, then... She paused, her mind clearly working through something. Her eyes suddenly widened with realization. What? Taewon asked. There is another law, an old one rarely used. If you refuse material compensation, the person you saved can offer an alternative reward. Something of personal value rather than monetary value. Like what? She looked at him, and he saw something in her expression that made his heart beat faster. I have an idea, but I need to discuss it with my uncle first. Trust me? Always. She smiled, brief but genuine, then went to speak with Dong Ha. Taewon watched through the workshop window as they had an intense conversation in their language. The Admiral's expression cycled through surprise, alarm, anger, and finally resignation. Other officers joined the discussion. There was much gesturing and what looked like arguing. Finally, Heirin returned. Her face was composed, formal, every inch the royal princess, but her eyes were bright with something that looked like excitement and nervousness mixed together. Taewon, she said, her voice carrying through the station. She was speaking loudly, formally, making sure everyone could hear. You have refused material compensation for saving my life and protecting me. This is your right under imperial law. I therefore invoke the ancient right of personal offering. Heirin, what are you? As crown princess of the Valorian Empire, I offer you the greatest gift I can give. My companionship. My partnership. My future. Taewon's mind went blank. What? I am claiming you as my chosen consort. If you accept, you will come with me to the imperial court. You will be at my side as we face the challenges ahead. You will help me change an empire that has forgotten what truly matters. She stepped closer, her voice dropping so only he could hear. You will be mine and I will be yours. If you want that, he stared at her speechless. Behind her, Admiral Dong Ha looked like he had aged 10 years. The other Valorians appeared to be in various states of shock. You are serious, Taewon finally managed to say. Completely. I am a human, a mechanic. I do not know anything about being royalty or politics, or I do not want someone who knows about those things. I want someone who is real, someone who does the right thing because it is right, someone who sees me as Heirin, not just a princess. She held out her hand. So what is your answer? Taewon looked at Heirin's outstretched hand. His mind was racing, thoughts tumbling over each other too fast to catch. A consort to an alien princess. Him. A man who had spent 5 years hiding from life in a salvage station. I need a minute, he said. He walked to the window and stared out at the massive fleet. Those beautiful, powerful warships represented everything he was not. Elegant, perfect, important. He was none of those things. He fixed broken equipment with duct tape and stubbornness. He burned breakfast. He had failed to save his family and had been running from that failure ever since. What could he possibly offer her? You are thinking too much, Heirin said from behind him. That is not possible for a decision this big. Then let me make it simple. Do you want to be alone anymore? He turned to face her. No, but that does not mean I should be with you. You deserve someone better. Better? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Better like the nobles who see me as a political tool? Better like my cousin who sent assassins to kill me? Better like the advisors who treat me like a delicate piece of art that must be protected and displayed, but never truly known? That is not what I meant. I know what you meant. You think you are broken. You think because you carry grief and guilt that you are somehow less worthy. She stepped closer. But you are wrong. You are the strongest person I have ever met. Not because you are fearless, you are clearly terrified right now, but because you act anyway. You saved me even though it would have been safer to ignore my beacon. You fought assassins even though they were better armed. You choose to care even though caring hurts? Heirin, I do not need perfect Taiwan. I need real. I need someone who will tell me the truth even when it is difficult. Someone who will stand beside me not because of my title but because of who I am. Can you be that person? He thought about his wife and daughter. The pain of losing them would never fully go away. But maybe Heirin was right. Maybe he had been so focused on avoiding pain that he had stopped living entirely. I have conditions, he said finally. Admiral Dongha, who had been watching from across the room with barely contained stress, stepped forward. You are in no position to make conditions, human. Uncle, please, Heirin said sharply. Then to Taiwan, what conditions? I will not pretend to be something I am not. I am a mechanic. If some fancy machine breaks, I am going to want to fix it myself even if that is not proper. Agreed. I will speak the truth as I see it. Even if it makes people uncomfortable, even if it breaks protocol, I expect nothing less. And I am keeping this station as a reminder of where I came from. Maybe as a place to escape to when the Imperial Court gets too overwhelming. That seems reasonable. Dongha looked like he was developing a headache. Heirin, you cannot seriously— I can and I am. She had not taken her eyes off Taiwan. Any other conditions? He took a deep breath. Just one more. If I do this, if I agree to this insane plan, you have to promise me something. What? Promise me that no matter what happens, no matter what pressures come from your court or your people, you will stay you. The person who learned to fix water recyclers. The person who laughs at my terrible jokes. The person He paused, finding the courage to say it. The person I am falling in love with. The room went completely silent. Even the ever-professional Valorian soldiers looked uncomfortable. Heirin's eyes were suddenly bright with tears. You are falling in love with me? Is that allowed? Or is there a protocol I am supposed to follow? She closed the distance between them and took his hands in hers. Her skin was cool against his, her grip strong and certain. I am falling in love with you too, you stubborn, impossible, wonderful human. So is that a yes? Yes to everything. All your conditions, all your stubbornness, all of you. Then I accept. She pulled him into a kiss. It was not gentle or uncertain. It was fierce and real and full of promise. Somewhere behind them, Admiral Dongha muttered something that was probably not appropriate for polite company. When they finally broke apart, Heirin turned to face her uncle and the assembled Valorians. Her voice rang out clear and formal. Let it be known throughout the Empire. I have chosen Taiwan of Earth as my consort-elect. Any who oppose this choice oppose me. Dongha sighed deeply. The council will not be pleased. The council can adapt. Heirin's tone left no room for argument. Prepare my ship. We depart within the hour. The Valorian sprang into action, clearly relieved to have something concrete to do. Taiwan looked around his small station, at the equipment he had maintained for 5 years, at the life he was about to leave behind. Regrets already? Heirin asked softly. No. Just saying goodbye. He picked up his old welding torch, the one he had used to fight the assassins. Some things come with me, though. Of course, the next hour passed in a blur. Taiwan packed a small bag with essential tools and a few personal items. Not much. He had learned to live with little, and that had not changed. Heirin arranged for his station to be placed under Imperial protection. No one would bother it or claim it as salvage. When it was time to leave, Taiwan took one last look at his home. The patched walls, the improvised repairs, the quiet solitude that had been his sanctuary and his prison. Ready? Heirin asked. As ready as I will ever be. The shuttle that took them to the flagship was luxurious beyond anything Taiwan had experienced. Soft seats, perfect climate control, displays showing elegant views of space. It was designed for comfort and status. He missed his cramped repair shuttle already. The flagship was even more overwhelming. Corridors that seemed to go on forever. All gleaming surfaces and flowing design. Crew members stopped and bowed as Heirin passed. Taiwan, walking beside her in his worn jacket and work boots, felt completely out of place. Stop worrying, Heirin murmured. You belong here because I say you do. That easy? That easy. They were taken to the Admiral's ready room for a private meeting. Dongha looked exhausted, like he had aged years in the past few hours. Do you understand what you have done? He asked Hayrin. I have chosen someone worthy. You have chosen a human. The council, the noble houses, even the common people, they will question this. Some will oppose it strongly. Let them. I am tired of living according to other people's expectations. Taiwan taught me that sometimes you have to do what is right even when it is difficult. Dongha turned to Taiwan. And you? Are you prepared for what is coming? There will be those who see you as an outsider, an intruder. They will test you, challenge you, try to break you. Taiwan shrugged. I have dealt with difficult things before. I will manage. With that attitude. Dongha shook his head, but there was a hint of amusement in his expression. You might actually survive the Imperial Court. Against all logic. The journey to the Imperial homeworld took 3 days. Taiwan spent most of that time with Hayrin, learning about her world, her responsibilities, the political landscape he was entering. It was overwhelming, but she was patient, answering his questions with the same care he had shown when teaching her about machinery. On the 3rd day, they arrived. The Imperial homeworld was breathtaking. Vast cities that seemed to grow organically from the landscape, towers reaching toward the sky, gardens that stretched for miles. It was beautiful in a way that human cities never achieved. The palace was at the center of the capital, a massive complex of interconnected buildings and gardens. As their shuttle approached, Taiwan could see crowds gathering. News of the princess's chosen consort had spread quickly. Nervous? Hayrin asked, terrified. Good. That means you understand the situation. She took his hand. But remember, you are not facing this alone. We face it together. The landing platform was filled with officials, nobles, and dignitaries, all waiting to see the human who had won the princess's heart. Taiwan could feel their eyes on him as he stepped out of the shuttle, judging, assessing, questioning. He stood straight and met their gazes without flinching. He was not going to pretend to be something he was not. Not for them. Not for anyone. The formal presentation ceremony was held that evening in the Grand Throne Room. Taiwan wore formal clothes that had been prepared for him, a strange hybrid of human and Valorian styles. He felt ridiculous, but Hayrin assured him he looked good. He was announced to the assembled court. Hundreds of eyes turned to watch as he walked forward to stand beside Hayrin. The whispers started immediately. So small for a human, someone said. Look at how he walks. No grace at all. The princess has made a grave mistake. Taiwan ignored them. He had learned long ago that other people's opinions mattered far less than his own actions. The emperor himself, Hayrin's grandfather, sat on the throne. He was ancient and imposing, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. He studied Taiwan for a long moment. So you are the one my granddaughter has chosen, the emperor said. His voice was surprisingly warm. Yes. Your Majesty, she tells me you defeated 4 assassins with mining equipment. I used what I had available, and that you refused a substantial reward. I did not do it for reward. The emperor smiled slightly. An unusual attitude. Tell me, human, what do you think you can offer our empire? You have no noble blood, no wealth, no political connections? Taiwan thought about how to answer. He could be diplomatic, try to say what they wanted to hear, but that was not who he was. I can offer the truth, he said finally.